plan, the first bipartisan gun legislation in decades, a major infrastructure law, again, a big bipartisan infrastructure law, the $280 billion industrial policy bill for investing in science and technology and computer chip manufacturing in the United States. That's a real list to take to voters. After today, thanks to this legislation, Americans will see lower drug prices, extended Obamacare subsidies, and really crucially, huge clean energy tax credits for everything from rooftop solar to electric vehicles to heat pumps. Not to mention, unemployment is down to 3.5%. So again, it's when you're running as the incumbent party, you own all the problems. That's just the way it is. But the Democratic Party right now can answer Kevin McCarthy's question, I think, with a pretty resounding yes. Yeah, yes, we are better off. And while we know the historical patterns, that means that the outcome of this year's midterms is not written in stone. Joining me now is the chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of New York. Congressman, what is your you and your colleagues' message to voters about the legislation today in a kind of tangible sense of, what does it mean for me if I'm not super tuned into politics, or I don't necessarily care one way or the other about what Democrats or Republicans are doing? Like, what does this tangibly mean for folks, this legislation signed today?
Well, the Inflation Reduction Act is going to make a big difference in the lives of everyday Americans. The first meaningful action to confront the climate crisis, and we've done it with the fierce urgency of now. We put our planet on a sustainable path forward. We're going to lower energy costs. We strengthen the Affordable Care Act. We're going to lower healthcare costs, and we give Medicare the ability to use its bulk price purchasing power to negotiate lower drug prices on behalf of the seniors of this country. It is going to improve the quality of life of people who have been struggling for decades, and it builds upon a tremendous record of accomplishment that the Biden administration, Democrats in the House and Senate have delivered during this congressional session.
Yeah, it is interesting to me that David Leonhardt, New York Times, is pointing this out, others have, that there has been more bipartisan legislation than I think I would have bet going into this. I mean, part of the theory of the case of Joe Biden's presidential campaign was, I've worked in the Senate for a huge portion of my adult life. I probably know that body as well as anyone on the planet. And I have the ability to kind of transcend the polarization. And it seemed always, to me, a slightly ludicrous story to tell. But what has happened? Like, this has been a very productive Congress, more than I would have bet.
Well, we have a vision to put people over politics and to fight to deliver lower cost, better paying jobs and safer communities. And that's exactly what we've done. We started with the American Rescue Plan, saved the economy, put shots in arms, money in pockets, kids back in school. And then we passed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which will help fix our crumbling bridges, roads, tunnels, airports, mass transportation system, make sure there's clean water in every single community. It will create millions of good-paying jobs. Then we passed gun safety legislation for the first time in 30 years, including making gun trafficking, over the objections of the NRA, a federal crime for the first time in American history. It's going to help us stop the flow of illegal guns into places like New York City and other inner-city communities and save lives. Then we passed the CHIPS and Science Act to help bring back domestic manufacturing jobs to the United States of America, when for the last several decades, those jobs have been moving in the other direction. And finally, the Inflation Reduction Act. So President Biden articulated a big vision. Some people dismissed that big vision and said, in this divided Congress and this divided country, you'll never be able to get it done. But we've actually got it done. Bipartisan whenever possible, and doing it as Democrats whenever necessary.
Obviously, the kind of headline issue in politics has been inflation, and that's understandable because it's the rare issue, right, that literally everyone experiences at some level, right? Not all issues are like that, right? There, even things like the outrageous cost of insulin, like that's a huge issue to the folks that need insulin, not to those necessarily who don't, whereas inflation is everywhere. If you look at the campaign happening in the UK, right, you see the Labour Party, the center-left party, they're banging on inflation just the way the Republicans are here. It's the perfect out-party issue, right? It's the people in power's fault that you're paying too much. What do you say to voters, and how central is that in the messaging for these upcoming midterms?
Well, we're going to continue to work on an agenda that does lower costs for everyday Americans, and we've delivered in some areas on energy costs, on prescription drug prices, on healthcare costs, and also we've created an environment led by our president where now gas prices are in decline for 9 consecutive weeks. Every single day of this summer, gas prices have dropped. Job creation continues to be robust, but we of course recognize that there's more to be done. And this election is not a referendum, it's a choice. And the choice is Democrats who are delivering, putting people over politics, and extreme Republicans. They're extreme on reproductive freedom. They want to criminalize abortion. Extreme on Social Security. They actually want to end it in 5 years. And of course, extreme on democracy. Chris, apparently, they don't believe in it anymore. And so we think when we can go to the voters with a very clear choice, we've got a strong chance to defy history and hold the majority in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, I thought that insulin vote was a really interesting one. Obviously, the price cap on insulin, people talked about forever. It passed out of the House in Democratic control. It got some votes from Republicans, but not enough to clear the filibuster in that vote-a-rama. And that even Ron Johnson saying, nope, we don't believe in caps and insulin. I thought that was a pretty elucidating moment about the two parties and their visions. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Coming up, even more bad news for Donald